Tom Thibodeau is sabotaging the New York Knicks after they fired him, as this is absolutely insane, as we are now witnessing Thibodeau go around to Knicks rivals while the Knicks just watch and see as their old game plans are just given to teams. We're going to break this all down, and we do have Patrick Billings of Celtics Digest with us on the channel. If you're around for the live streams, you definitely remember him from all those playoff lives that we did. But guys, Tom Thibodeau, he recently went to the Boston Celtics. Most likely, I would say, the Knicks' biggest rivals now, and just gave away valuable information to the team as Jaylen Brown literally started to reveal. We're going to go over all this and much more, guys. What's up? Welcome back. If you guys are not subscribed to either Knicks or Celtics Digest, make sure to subscribe to both of them. We have 57% of people who are not subscribed to Knicks Digest. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update on the Knicks. But let's jump right into this because there is a lot to go over on this situation right now, Pat. Because look, as we know, the Knicks and the Celtics, they obviously did have a very, very intense playoff run just a couple months ago. In that, we saw the Knicks land a massive upset over the Boston Celtics for a few different reasons. And frankly, Tom Thibodeau being the coach of that team, he coached an excellent series. Obviously, nobody expected what was going to happen next to happen where the Knicks, I mean, losing to the Pacers wasn't the most shocking thing in the world, but the crazy part came from when Thibodeau got fired after the Knicks ultimately would lose in 6 to Indiana. Since then, we have seen Thibodeau bounce around to multiple different places, including the Boston Celtics, where we have just seen a ton go down with this situation, as he was seen with Joe Mazzulla. We could see the photo here of him with Mazzulla. There was photos of him with Jason Tatum. We also saw him in Minnesota, another rival of New York, and Mark Diagonal going out there and saying Thibodeau visited him, saying he asked us to come in. He's sitting the year and traveling around. It takes a lot of humility for someone who's had that success to put him in this position. He's always been very good to me. And Mikal Bridges said it's no issue at all. But Pat, I disagree. I don't love that the Knicks former coach, who, if nothing else, knows the tendencies of a lot of these players, is going in there and just giving away information to our rivals.
Yeah, I think from the Knicks side of things, I could definitely see that perspective of we kind of just got over the hump. We finally beat the Celtics in the playoffs, and now it looks like we're grooving. We're going to play the Pacers. We're going to find our way into the finals, and then it falls apart, and Tom Thibodeau ends up seeing himself on the outside of the thing and getting fired. And then one of the first things he does is go and travel to all these great other teams in the NBA, and right before the season starts, he goes to Boston. I mean, a familiar face for him as he won a championship there when he was there in 2008, 2007 to 10. So a familiar face for him, probably good for him to kind of get back into things and just see where all these great teams are and maybe just look where his next step can be, even though he takes a year off. But I think the information that he's mostly giving the Boston Celtics is just really their weaknesses and what he saw in his game plans to try and beat this team instead of kind of talking about his Knicks players that he had for a plethora of years. And I think he had a great relationship with a lot of those top guys, and I don't think he'd give away too much information on themselves, but I think more of just helping the Celtics players out on what he saw and maybe some fixes in their games to kind of, start the season off great, because no Jason Tatum, of course, and, this is a total different roster now. So maybe he was just giving them some advice on their own team successes instead of talking about the Knicks and other teams as well.
One thing I do want to go over before just talking about how Joe Mazzulla and Jaylen Brown talked on this is for the first time really in Jaylen Brown's career, obviously there's been a lot of stuff that really, I understand he's not like for a wing or can also, for a guy who's a first top player, could really play the 2 to the 4, but is mainly a wing. Like, he's not the world's greatest ball handler, but Tom Thibodeau, he is someone who his best player, no matter who it is, usually is the ball in their hands a lot. I mean, we even can date this back to 2014 when Derrick Rose was out. Joakim Noah had the ball in his hands a ton, facilitating the ball and just dominating on a usage standpoint. This is going to be the first time in Jaylen Brown's career where he's really going to be this guy who, frankly, I'm expecting him. I know Joe Mazzulla. I know the Boston Celtics move the ball around super, super well, but I'm expecting Jaylen Brown to have some of the highest usage in basketball. I mean, Peyton Pritchard, obviously an excellent just guard in general, can play either spot. Derek White, again, excellent player. But this is Jaylen Brown's team. For the first time in his career, this is Jaylen Brown's team. He's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. So I think when you bring in Thibodeau, this kind of does work from Jaylen Brown's perspective.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And honestly, in the games that Jason Tatum hasn't been playing in, Jaylen Brown might not have the biggest stats like in the world, some that you wouldn't really expect. But I think having a pretty much a full season of it, I expect Jason Tatum to come back. I'm a little bit more,
Same.
hopeful for this, and he's looks great in all of his workouts. But I think the one positive, like you just said, is just with that main primary ball handler and seeing how Jaylen Brown can play through that, and maybe he could just be the guy who's running the plays. The plays run through him. He's bringing the ball up the court because a lot of things that the Celtics like to do is have one of their main guys bring up the ball. So you saw Jason Tatum get a lot of rebounds last year. You saw guys like Luke Cornett not grabbing any defensive rebounds. He would get 12 rebounds a game, but 9 of them being offensive because he'd rather a guy like Jason Tatum or Derek White get the ball and go into their sets right up the court so they don't have to pass it to someone, waste more time. But it just helps with ball movement and just having more confidence in some of your guys. And I can totally see that with Jaylen Brown. And maybe that's something that Thibodeau was talking about. But I think having a guy like oh my goodness, Jalen Brunson and guys like Josh Hart as well, those guys are able to push it up the court. He was a lot faster pace offense. If you try to get into things a lot quicker, he would much rather do that. So maybe that's one thing he tried to help the Celtics on in that way.
Yeah, I definitely think that in a lot of ways, Tom Thibodeau, who is known for going around to practices, is usually going to be a helpful guy. I mean, he clearly helped the Knicks a ton. The Knicks were terrible without him. They weren't supposed to make the playoffs. He's arguably, I mean, obviously Julius Randle having that breakout year was what led the train there, but I really don't think that would have happened under every coach. I think Tibbs was a special case here, but Tibbs was mentioned by both Mazzulla and Brown with just seeing right here Jaylen Brown say, obviously, they eliminated us last year, so Thibodeau being able to come in and give us some of the thoughts that he saw in the series and some of the stuff that they broke down in our personnel or even our team helps us grow and learn from that. We lost last year. It stung losing to the Knicks. So to have Tibbs here at our practice explaining some of the things that he saw helped them beat us only helps me get better. Only helps us get better. So I value that. Shout out to Tibbs for being here today with Joe Mazzulla saying he won a championship here. Just having him around makes me better, makes our organization better. It's a lot of respect for him. I think it's more he's been a friend of me for a long time, obviously. He coached here. He won a championship here. His presence is more about coming to learn the game and paying respect to a coach that has been here for a long time and has been in this organization and hung a banner. And anything that we can learn from him, it just so happened that he happened to be the coach that knocked us out of the playoffs the year before. There wasn't much there from that standpoint. So Joe Mazzulla more going out there and saying, well, it's not like we're learning his plays that he ran with the Knicks. And I mean, obviously, Mike Brown's in there. Mike Brown runs a completely different style of basketball than Tom Thibodeau. It's one of the reasons why Tibbs got fired. But Pat, real quick, something that I do worry about on the whole topic of Tibbs going around to these practices is the Knicks and Tibbs did not end things amicably at all. Now, I'm someone who does not claim to have a lot of inside sources because I have one friend who gives me some stuff. Tom Thibodeau was furious about getting fired. Yeah. He was not happy with it at all. The Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau because they went in and asked their core players, and I mean, it's including but not limited to the starting five of all of last season except for the final couple games against Indiana. So Brunson, Hart, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Karl-Anthony Towns, and then also Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride were likely around for this as well. These players were asked about their roles under Tom Thibodeau and how confident they were in what their roles were. And a lot of them said they didn't know exactly what their role was supposed to be specifically on offense. And that you can date back to Mikal Bridges, who did say he didn't care about Thibodeau going over to Boston and go giving them whatever he was giving them and helping them however way he could. And on top of that, when Thibodeau was asked, because he got offered a front office role, he did respond with, you could take that front office role and shove it. So that is all I've heard on Tom Thibodeau. So my one fear is that he's like, well, I already won a championship with the Celtics. Never won one with the Knicks. Might as well help him out a little bit and get the Knicks back.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally understand his frustration 100% because he totally changed this franchise from what it used to be to now. I mean, I live in New York, of course, so I'm able to catch a lot of Knicks games, talk to a lot of Knicks friends, and just understand it. Villanova fan as well, so I know a lot of these guys. And honestly, I think it kind of made sense the firing in my take, just because it just didn't seem like he could get over the hump. And if you look at this year's roster, I would have loved to see him with this roster, giving him one more chance looking back at it now because
Mhm.
he has a lot more depth. Looking back at last year, there really wasn't a lot of depth. You guys still were a little bit injury ridden as you are looking into your game tomorrow. You already have two guys not playing. So I think just with his system, and he had to play a lot of guys a lot of minutes because there's only so many people he could choose from and just count on. I could understand why he's frustrated because he feels like he just changed this organization, one of the most preliminary or whatever type of word you want to use. It's New York, it's the Knicks playing in the most, famous arena in the world. And he feels like he was finally changing the culture there. And right when he feel like he had it, he got let go. And I can understand why he's frustrated. But I would have loved to see him with this roster, Chris. I feel like he would have had so much more to work with. And I really feel like it could have been, something magical. But you never know now. New system, and we got to see how they play.
I definitely don't disagree with that. Like I sort of did when basically once that series ended against the Pacers, that is, it
Hmm.
kind of felt like it was 50-50 if Tibbs was
Yeah.
going to stick around.
Mhm.
And the best way, like, I could kind of say it was like, I'm pretty ambivalent either way, which makes it seem like I don't care if Tibbs gets fired or not. It wasn't that. There were glaring issues with Tibbs, but I didn't see just some clear cut replacement out there. I definitely didn't consider Mike Brown as someone who would even get hired by the Knicks. And I mean, I like Mike Brown in a lot of ways. I do think similar to Thibodeau, he's a flawed coach. Most coaches who get fired from, and this really transcends across all sports, but especially basketball and football, where if you're a great coach, you don't leave. You're never fired. You stay there forever. And I mean, I just don't know enough about hockey, and baseball managers do change even with success.
Yeah.
So with that, it's like it's become this situation where to me, I always felt like even a while back, my one of my bigger reasons for wanting Tibbs fired was obviously the lack of a bench usage. As you said, the Knicks bench, frankly, it wasn't really good. Like that's
Right.
the biggest issue. It wasn't really a strong bench. On top of that, one of my big issues with Tibbs, or one of my big like sort of feelings with Tibbs, was he didn't run a modern offense. It was very much pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll. Let your best scorer figure it out, which doesn't work in modern basketball where there's too much ball movement and too much like empowerment towards shooters. I always sort of felt like Tom Thibodeau was going to be that coach who wouldn't be able to lead the Knicks to the finals, but would get them as close as humanly possible to just being prepared for it. It's very similar to me, like what happened with the Warriors when they let go of Mark Jackson and replaced him with Steve Kerr, where it's like he's a great coach, but there's flaws that will probably prevent a championship. So I overall was like 60-40 in pro of firing him, but I do agree with you. It would have been interesting to see Tibbs work with a lineup where if he so chose, he could have went 11 deep.
Yeah, I mean the one thing I did like about the lineup last year is just having those backup guards that were also lefties,
Hmm.
because you can kind of run the offense the exact same with Brunson. He comes out, you put in campaign. I mean, not the best option, but we see him go off in a couple of games, and
Yeah.
then Tyler Kolek, who kind of just sat the bench the whole time, who I've seen play a lot of basketball throughout my time throughout college, and just he's a player as well, and he just wasn't being used. It just Tibbs doesn't really trust the younger guys, kind of like Joe Mazzulla as well. But sometimes your hands kind of being forced. And like you saw in the playoffs, we saw DeLon Wright starting to get minutes out of nowhere. Guy didn't play at all
Hmm.
season long. And all of a sudden, he's ready to play in the Eastern Conference Finals against a really tough Pacers team, as much as you hate to say it. We watched that team last year that we beat them on our way to the championship, but God, they were tough. But I mean, other than that, man, I feel for Tibbs. I hopefully he's not giving too much information for the Knicks' sake. I think he was personally just helping the Celtics out with some of their weaknesses and kind of things that he could see changing. And I think Joe Mazzulla is opening to listening to that. And I mean, I don't know. I think the Knicks are still in a good spot, so I don't think you should let it hang over your head.
Yeah, I sort of feel similarly. I got one more question before we wrap things
Yeah,
up
let's do
here,
it.
Pat. Real quick, what is, as a rival, I want to know what your predictions are for both the Knicks and for your Celtics this year before we get things going.
Yeah, so I think just for me, I think the East could be a little bit tougher at the top, personally, just because a lot of the moves that are made, and you look at the Orlando Magic, first of all, defensively, they are fantastic. And
Yeah.
if they stay healthy, they look like they could be a one seed, which is unbelievable to say.
Mhm.
I think the Cavs are kind of just do the same thing as last year, hang in there, maybe not start off as hot as they did last year, but I think they're going to be great as well. And the Hawks are my sleeper team. I think that defensively they are way better surrounding Trey Young. They got a lot of options over there. And then the Knicks, of course. I think those four teams will be at the top of the East, and I think it's going to be close. It just comes down to the Knicks offense and what it looks like now with a new head coach. I'm truly interested. I could totally see them being a 2 seed. The 1 seed is kind of tough for me to say for the Knicks, to be honest with you. Just out of feeling, honestly. And just defensively, I just don't know what this team's going to look like now with the new scheme. And then if we look at my Celtics, man, I still got hope. I think that we could hang in there, make the 6 seed. It could sound crazy. There's some teams that might shock us, like the Raptors, like we talk all about all the time. Sorry, Ben, but I don't think that's gonna happen. But no, but I think the Celtics can hang in there, and if Jason Tatum comes back when we're in a good spot, still fighting for a playoff spot, I mean, why not? Why not us?
That's totally fair. Well, we're going to have a lot of good rivalry games. And guys, make sure to tune in to our Knicks Digest Happy Hour live streams. Patrick Billings is a recurring guest on those streams. When it's him, Matt, and I on that, you do get that Sacred Heart University takeover. But with all that being said, you guys can make sure to catch us every Friday for those live streams. Outside of that, make sure to tune into Celtics Digest all the time. Pat's got a bunch of great videos over there with Chase Andrews. Bunch of cool stuff going on there, especially with all the turmoil going on with kind of a different team. And also make sure you're subscribed to Knicks Digest. And if you're not, well then, I don't know what you're doing. You got to get your life together. Thanks so much for watching. Like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Have a great day. Go Knicks. And we beat the Celtics in 6. Yeah, we know. We did.
Yeah, we'll see Friday. Yes, we will.